Hi guys, it's Theo Stocker here on another very windy day of the Southampton Boat Show. And this morning I've come down onto the pontoons to have a look at a very cool, exciting, small and very racy new boat. This is the Jeanneau Sun Fast 31 design. It's a really interesting boat. So there were three sailing clubs, the Tri-Sail Club in America, Rourke in the UK and the Yacht Club de France, who were all looking for a small one design offshore boat that was going to be affordable and make it more accessible for people to get into short-handed, solo and small crewed racing, which has been a massive theme over the last few years. They also wanted a boat that was simple to sail, certainly simpler than a Figaro, to mean that a good sailor could get on board without having to spend a long time having to learn how to sail with the foils and do all of the tweaky bits like that. VPLP won the contract to design the boat, and this is what they came up with. The boat was going to be built by Multiplast, who build things like IMOCAs and Ultime trimarans. They quickly realised that to produce it in the numbers that were going to be required, they'd need help from a large production yard, which is where Jeanneau stepped in on the condition that the boat came under the Sun Fast brand alongside the Sun Fast 3300, the 3600, which are already really popular short-handed offshore sailing boats. The boat isn't designed to compete on IRC, though it probably will do at times. It is a really sporty little boat. It's absolutely stripped down to about 2.5 tons. You can see that it's got a really fat scow bow, which suggests that it's going to do well off wind and downwind. It might not be quite so punchy upwind, and it's only got a 30-foot waterline, so you're going to lose out there, but it's got the same sail area as the Sunfast 3300, so it should fly off the wind. Let's go and have a little bit of a look around, and you can see what you think. On board in the cockpit then, we've got a setup that is really well configured for racing. It's for two-handed racing. You could race it single-handed, but it's also designed to have up to 4 crew on board. And actually you'll notice the moulding here is for water bottles, so there's going to be spaces to hold 4 water bottles, 2 on each side, as well as some rope bags here to hold all of the halyards and lines coming aft. It's quite neat that all of the lines come aft on starboard side, so that you've got an offset companionway to make the companionway large enough, and that means that you only need a single winch rather than 2 winches on the coach roof, which again keeps costs down, keep things simple and keep things light. There's a recess here where there's going to be a chart plotter, and this is getting a full B&G set of electronics. The only slight issue I can see is halyards potentially coming down over the screen, but if the rope bag's here, it should keep it out of the way. Then in terms of controls, you've got some coach roof control lines there and more control lines here for, largely these are going to be for adjusting your jib car position, and what you've got is the sort of the fairly ubiquitous now Jeanneau 3D sheet system, where you've got in haulers, down haulers, and a little line holding it up so that you can move your fair lead for your jib sheet inboard, outboard, up and down, so you can get your sheeting angle just right. Then coming aft to the tiller steered to twin rudders, which are transom mounted, so you've got complete and easy access to the tie bars, and the tie bars are important because they control the toe in angle on the rudders, and for this type of boat there's a fair amount of tuning goes into getting the toe in angle on the rudders just right for maximum pointing. Obviously you're going to be heeling while you're going upwind, so you've got these little footrests, just stainless steel U-bars on a hinge with a cleat here, so you can adjust that as you're going, so you can have your feet exactly where you want them, or you can fold that in out of the way. There's also a chock down the centre line of the cockpit for bracing against, and then you've got main sheet controls here, so you've got coarse main sheet and fine main sheet controls, and then just underneath me here is the traveller control, and you've got a full width traveller for the main sheet as well. In terms of winches on deck, we've got just 2 primary winches, one either side. These are Harken Performer 35s, and they will handle the jib and the code 0, or the asymmetrics, whatever head sail you're flying at the time, off the bowsprit. The rig is a really simple, it's aluminium boom, aluminium mast to keep the rig, to keep the costs down, and it's deck stepped. Single spreader, but really large swept aft spreaders, as you'd expect from this kind of boat. And then you've got a good degree of control over the sail as well. You've actually got running backstays, so this is for a square top mainsail. And you've got runners on either side, which will be controlled by the winches here. So you bring them to the winches. So rather than an adjustable backstay, they've got a runner on each side, so you can have a large roach or a square top mainsail. At the forward end of the cockpit, I've already mentioned about the winch and control lines. You've got a fairly simple companionway with a good high lip, so when you have water on deck, it doesn't all flow below, and a sliding hatch cover there. I wonder if it needs a little lip there, either to hold onto or keep spray off from dripping down below. The crew seats here are actually a little bit raised, not very raised, but probably just enough to keep your backside out of the water when you've got green water washing aft, as I'm sure will happen. Going forward, it's a step up here, and you've got a really aggressive, grippy deck here, so you've got loads of grip on deck. Shrouds are taken all the way outboard to give you maximum stiffness on the rig, and here you've got the various pad eyes and fair leads for tweakers for your kites, and the in-haul and tweakers for your jib sheet angle as well. The boom has a flexible strut support so that it doesn't need a topping lift, and the kicker, relatively low purchase on this one because you've got such a big traveller at the back. But you've got something like, I think it's just a 4-to-1 purchase there by the looks of it, taken aft to the cockpit. In terms of hatches and ventilation, you've got opening ports, one either side, just small, so not loads of light down below. And then there's an opening hatch on the foredeck that goes into the, I would say fore cabin. It's a forepeak really that is completely empty. We'll see down there in a minute. Stanchions are reinforced so that they're really solid. So you've got the standard stanchion bases with an extra little strut to keep them nice and stiff. And then we go up onto the foredeck. The foredeck is really well laid out for working on deck. You shouldn't need to do too much from the mast, although there are a couple of cleats here for hoisting the spinnakers, so that you can cleat it off while you're on the foredeck before going aft. Take it in and put it properly on the clutch or the winch and get all your tension on. But it means if you're short-handed, you don't have to go back into the cockpit to sort out your halyards. The opening hatch here, forward opening hatch. So you'll probably be dropping some spinnakers down there, shoving kit, and that's straight down into the forepeak, and it doesn't matter, there's nothing in there to get wet. So if it gets wet in there, it doesn't matter. But and then you've got chocks, foot braces, moulded inboard, so you've got good big tow rails, but you've also got these ones so that when the boat's heeling over, you can brace and you can do your deck work up here. And then at the forward end, we've got an unusual arrangement of bowsprit and forestay. So there's a large carbon hollow tube section for a bowsprit that gives you about 1 metre of projection beyond the bow, and that comes aft into this recess on deck, so that's all part of the deck moulding. That takes away a little bit of space below. But on a boat like this, that doesn't matter. It keeps it all watertight and really simple, and that's then secured with 2 stainless steel braces through that it goes through, and that gives it all its stiffness. So it's a really simple system with a bit of a purchase to pull it out and another line to pull it back in to retract it. Up at the bow, there's no anchor lockers, no faffing around with that sort of stuff. You've got 2 deck cleats. They're fixed ones. Be tempted to put a folding one there or something just to stop lines snagging, or the possibility of lines snagging. You've got an open pulpit, and then the forestay comes down onto this stainless steel U section here, which means that the bowsprit can go out on the centre line, The tack attachment points for the head sails at the moment are actually both slightly outboard. The design is that they should be both on the centre line properly, so that is going to be changed on subsequent boats. This is hull number 2. The first one has just started sailing in France. This one's come straight out of the factory and straight to the Southampton boat show, so there's still quite a lot of working up and working out finishing touches. When we get to test sail this, which I hope we will, we should see how all of that stuff works out. Down below, it's obvious that this is a pure race boat. It has very few creature comforts, and it's clear that all of the unnecessary weight has been stripped out of it. That said, there's still enough to stay on board, and there's space for 4 people to sleep on board. The forward part of the boat is completely empty. It's not a huge space, and it would be uncomfortable for sleeping in when you're racing or sailing. So all of the accommodation has been put further aft. So there are 2 bench seats, bunks either side that I'm on now. These will have cushions on. This boat is brand new out of the factory. It arrived in the UK last week, so there's still quite a lot of fitting out to do. The B&G electronics pack still got to go in. Cushions, lee cloths, that kind of stuff. So this is absolutely bare boat at the moment. You can see here we've got a small sink with a hand pump and a water butt there. That's it, that's your water system. You've got a great big chart table here, which you will probably cover with computers and navigation software, as well as paper charts if you want to use them. And then you've got a big instrument panel up here with your electrical switches and things. We've got an engine which is under the steps here, and you've got your battery isolators easily accessible just there. It's a Nanny diesel which is used in the Figaros as well, so a good solid reliable engine. And then you can see that there's no sort of extra weight. This is the inside of the moulding, foam core, and you can see the bolts just covered up there with little caps for all of the deck fittings. So in terms of changing things, maintenance, you can see exactly where everything is. And they've done that in order to keep the weight down. This boat weighs just over 2,600 kilos, 2.5 tons, which for a 30-footer is very little indeed. The boat is also as simple as possible in order to keep the cost down. So boats like the Figaro 3 or virtually any other boat of this sort of ilk are a lot more expensive to buy, to run. And the idea of this boat is that it can be used for world championships. It can be used for for mixed two-handed racing is really its core, though it can be raced four-handed if you want to. And the idea is that it's simple to sail, so you can turn up, and as long as you're a decent sailor, you should be able to get it up to a good speed. Clearly you need to get to know the boat, but it's much less technical and much less fiddly than something like a Figaro 3 that's got foils and all sorts of other bits and bobs going on. This boat has a simple sail wardrobe with a mainsail, 2 head sail, a jib, a number 1 jib and number 2 jib, which is a reefing jib, storm jib trysail, and then it's got 2 asymmetric spinnakers, an A2 and A4, and then it's also got a flying jib, like a Code 0, but not rated for IRC. This boat will race under IRC, but it's not optimised for that. And the hull shape is such that it's not really, it's not going to be an amazing upwind boat. It's got a scow bow, it's really broad at the bow, and what it's designed for is as soon as you ease off the wind a little bit, it'll just take off. So it's designed for reaching, running, and that kind of thing. So you will lose out a little bit upwind, but you should make all of that back downwind, and it should have a lot of fun doing so. And it fits into the Sun Fast range. It wasn't designed initially as part of that, but it is now a Sun Fast 30. It's also designed to strict one design rules so that it can be raced in world championships or potentially something like the Olympics should two-handed offshore racing be taken on for that. Let's have a little look around. Up forwards then, you can see that we've got a completely open space here forward of the mast. You've got exposed ring frames, longitudinal stringers, and you can see exactly what's going on everywhere. You do actually have a holding tank because that is legally required. Then you've got access here into a crash bulkhead. So that's not an anchor locker, that is just a watertight compartment, so that were you to have a collision or take on water in the bow, this is then a watertight bulkhead to keep you safe. And you can see here, this is just the moulding for where the bowsprit goes up on deck. And that is a good strong styrene smell in there. You've also got a head. You actually have a little bit of privacy in the head, so you probably have a little canvas door over the entrance, but it's just a sea toilet, and that's it. There's no sink, there's no shower, but there is space to hang up wet waterproofs. There's a shelf here, so you can put more kit here as well. But that is about it in the forepeak. Oh yeah, and an opening hatch, of course. Well, that's the Jeanneau Sun Fast 31 design. I hope you've enjoyed having a look. I think it's a pretty cool, exciting, sporty little boat. It's not going to be a cruising boat. It hasn't even got a bow roller or an anchor locker or anything like that. If you want to cruise it, I'm sure you probably could do. It's got this awesome looking, really fat scow bow that might send shudders down some people's spine thinking about going into a seaway. But if you're looking for a fast boat, you're probably not too worried about a little bit of discomfort in the name of speed. Otherwise, it is simple, it's stripped out, and it knows exactly what it's about. So if you are looking for a boat to go racing in, there aren't that many boats, either of this size range being built, or that you can get on the water at this price point for. So cost-wise, she comes in at 142,000 euros straight out of the yard without any of the extras or VAT. By the time you've imported it to the UK, paid your VAT, put on a set of North sails, B&G kit, you're looking at about £200,000.